We're going to begin our discussion on developmental assessments by talking about the PEP 3, the Psychoeducational Profile 3rd edition. This is a common assessment used for students with autism. It's a multi-component assessment that includes both a performance piece and a caregiver report. And so we're going to talk today about not only the administration of this assessment, but the scoring, interpretation, and program planning that can be derived from this assessment. The PEP 3 is used primarily to identify certain strengths and weaknesses in different developmental categories. Another important component of the PEP assessment is that it has been normed on students with autism as well as typically developing students. And so the practitioner then gets the ability to compare the student's performance not only to other students with autism, but also to typically developing students, which makes this a particularly useful assessment in confirming diagnosis as well as in program planning and monitoring. The PEP is appropriate for use with students who are between 6 months and 7 years of age, and is most often used for students who are moderately to severely impacted by autism. One of the unique features of the PEP assessment is the object kit, and this kit contains a variety of objects that are used in the performance piece of the assessment. And these objects include items for pretend play, items for imitation, fine and gross motor tasks, and these items are directly connected to specific questions and specific performance pieces within the assessment. As discussed earlier, there are two main components to the PEP assessment, the performance section and the caregiver report. Within the performance assessment, there are three main domain areas: communication, motor, and maladaptive behavior. Under each of these domain areas is a variety of subtests. Within each of these subtests, the PEP clearly outlines specific activities and tasks to be completed with the student. What follows is an example of some of the performance section of the PEP 3. Keep in mind that students completing the PEP assessment should do so in an environment that they are used to working in and with specific tools and resources that will help them complete the assessment successfully. Another factor to keep in mind is that the PEP was designed to be delivered in a structured environment with more than one administrator. There are a variety of ways that this can be accomplished, the easiest of which may be to have one administrator presenting tasks to the student while the other administrator scores the student's response.
Listen, what are you working for? Computer. The computer. Okay, we're going to write computer right there.
Right.
Where do they go? Great job. Look, give me the big one. Great job. Look, it's the big one. Give me the little one. Great job. That's the little one. Can you jump with 2 feet? Good job. Jump again. Good jumping. Can you stand on 1 foot?
Have a great time. Simuyan.
Great job. Watch what I do. Your turn.
Yeah, tapatu.
These specific performance tasks continue, covering a variety of areas, including expressive language, fine and gross motor skills, social reciprocity, and verbal behavior. Keep in mind that under the maladaptive behavior subtest, many of the items are scored based on teacher observation and not direct test administration. When administering the performance portion of the PEP 3, certain test administration guidelines should be followed. New administrators of the PEP 3 should practice the performance assessment at least 3 times under the supervision of an experienced user. Examiners should be careful to follow the specific administration directions of each item in terms of whether to use verbal directions, gestures, or other prompts during the assessment administration. Generally, the PEP assessment will take about an hour to an hour and a half to complete, and all of the items that are needed to complete the PEP assessment are contained in the test kit. However, you might need other items such as edibles, something to drink, and a room that has access to a light switch. The second portion of the PEP assessment is the caregiver report. The caregiver report should be completed by an adult who has daily contact with the child. Oftentimes, the most appropriate is the parent or guardian of the child. There are two sections of the caregiver report. The first section asks parents to estimate the developmental level of their child, as well as to identify specific problems that exist in certain diagnostic categories. From there, the parents are asked to complete the second section of the caregiver report, which includes parents' observations of problem behavior, personal self-care skills, and adaptive behavior routines. Keep in mind that the only portion of the parent-caregiver report that is used for normative purposes are the problem behavior, personal self-care, and adaptive behavior subtests. Scoring of the PEP 3 is rather straightforward. All items are scored as 0, 1, and 2. On the developmental subtests, which are measured by direct testing, 2 indicates passing, 1 indicates emerging, and 0 indicates failing. Under the maladaptive behavior subtest, which is scored through direct observation, 2 indicates appropriate, 1 indicates mild, and 0 indicates severe. Keep in mind that complete description of the scoring criteria for each item can be found in the Guide to Item Administration. Look closely at this example from the Guide to Item Administration. In the far right column, specific scoring criteria for each item is included. After all items have been administered and the scoring completed, it is time to sum all of the subtests to create raw scores. All of the scored items are added together on the last page of the summary booklet to create a raw score for each subtest. These summed raw scores are then transferred to the front of the summary booklet, and using the tables in the examiner's manual are transformed into developmental ages, percentile ranks, and developmental and adaptive levels. The developmental ages scores are based on the normally developing sample. These scores provide the examiner with developmental ages across the 7 assessed areas. Change over time can be tracked by retesting annually and comparing changes in developmental ages. Developmental ages are useful in developing specific programming for students with autism, as well as comparing students with autism to specific developmental milestones. The other types of scores that the PEP 3 provides are the percentile ranks, and these percentile ranks are based on the autism comparison sample, and they can be used to provide examiners with the child's developmental or adaptive levels in each area measured by the test in comparison to other students with autism. These percentile ranks are organized on both the performance measure and the maladaptive behavior measure as being adequate, mild, moderate, or severe. These scores can help practitioners and families determine the impact of autism on those specific assessment areas. Finally, the developmental or adaptive levels provide a general frame of reference for how a child's development fall within a range of autistic children his or her age. These developmental levels can change over time, dictating changes in programming or possibly even diagnostic classification.